Foul on the play. Unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 7, Tim Nash, disqualified for the night and a 2-race penalty. Hello, race fans. I'm Danny Padilla, and you are chilling with the villain. We're going to dive into this Tim Nash Vanderieat situation that happened. But first, let's take a look back at how this all got started. Take a look.
The video you're about to see was posted on YouTube by Dirty Right Rear Podcast.
Dirtiest right rear you've ever thrown somebody, and number 2, what's the dirtiest right rear you've ever had thrown on you? Putting you on the spot here.
I ain't put me on the spot. Racing as long as I have, I have made. We won't even call them enemies, but I've had altercations. I've had altercations with a lot of guys that I race with, but there's one guy right now that I still got a beef with, and he gave me a dirty right rear, and I gave him one.
What's his name?
Vanderieat.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I had a
second, and Tim's running the top, which Tim likes to run the top. Great. I'm a bottom feeder. Everybody knows me. That's ever met me knows I'm a bottom guy. And so I'm coming up off the corner, and I'm kind of diming in the racetrack, if you know what I mean. You're running low in the bottom of the corners, and you let the car work up on the straightaways and then come back down into the corners.
Right.
No cars beside me, nothing. Well, I get hit in the ass 4 laps in a row. Bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, I didn't, at that point, we don't have mirrors. I didn't know who it was. I assumed who it was, that he was just getting a run and was hitting me. I wasn't too worried about it the first time or two. I was like, well, maybe I didn't give him enough room, or maybe I'm just slow, but I never did see him. I would just feel him on the front straightaway. Every time it was the front straightaway. And he'd hit me right at the flag stand. So finally, I got ticked off, and the next lap, I come through there, and I didn't let the car work up. I stayed low coming down the front straightaway, and he got up beside me, and I run him up the racetrack going into 1 to show him my displeasure. Didn't touch him, got video to prove it, didn't touch him. Just kind of let the car work up getting into 1 instead of holding my lane. I let it work up, never touched him. He went up top. Somebody else spun out behind us, a lap car or something, and it spun out. I pull up beside him and I'm like, hey, man, what's up? He flips me off and dumps me under caution.
Okay, now that you've seen both videos, let's dive off into this thing. I know that when I explain this to you, I want to explain it to you as if you're a non-driver. I know that Tim Nash has a lot of fans out there, both drivers and non-drivers, so I want to be able to explain this to you so everybody understands. And as an AMOD driver, I feel that I've got the experience to view these videos and give you an honest opinion about both drivers. I don't have a thing against either one of them, so I'm going to be completely neutral, and I'm just going to base my opinions off of the facts that I've seen. So after the video went out with Tim, I got notified, and I watched that portion of the clip just as you saw. And then I reached out to Vanderieat and asked him, did he want to do a response to that clip? So he did. And when I posted it, the very next day, Tim Nash reached out to me. He was very nice about it. He just said, hey, I don't think your buddy got his story straight. So he sent, and so then we talked a little bit back and forth and kind of ended it that way. So then I started watching clips the very next morning from my hotel room, and I realized that Vanderieat was off. So there were some things that he got misunderstood or timelines were off. He was actually talking about 2 races. One was the birthday race, Tim Nash's birthday race from last year, and the second one was the one that says 8 wheels are better than 4. So we're talking about 2 different videos from Vanderieat's perspective. One was about a slider, and then one was about giving somebody a dirty right rear, and I'll explain all that to you here in a minute. But I reached out to Tim and asked him, could I use some of his footage? And he said no. And then during that day, he hadn't responded yet. I started doing some research and found out that I could use his footage, only short bits, if I gave him credit for it, and if I was using it for an explanation or something to that effect. So legally, I could have watched it, but Tim Nash later that evening told me, absolutely not, you cannot use my videos. I asked him why. He said, well, you said in your second video that neither one of us are going to like it, so I don't want you to use, I'd be an idiot or I'd be stupid to let you use my footage to make him look bad. So I went back and forth with him, and he kind of, in a roundabout way, I've got the messages. He said, post it and see what happens. In other words, just kind of saying, I'm not going to take it. If you post it, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to have something to say or whatever. So I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't want to start yet another set of drama. So anyways, I chose not to use his videos, only because I didn't want to. I legally could, but I did not choose to use it because I've got other footage that I could use. It's not as good, but it's still going to get the point across and get us to the end of this story. So here, let's dive in. Here we go.
Here is the first of 3 videos sent to me by Vanderieat, and this particular one has no sound.
Okay, so there you have it. Vanderieat on the pole, outside pole sits Nash on a restart. They go off into turn number 1. Vanderieat slides it in there, pulls a slider, absolutely clean slider. There's nothing wrong about that slider, 100% clean. That was a valid slider. I don't care who you are, you cannot dispute that. The problem is, in these modifieds, when you pull a slider on these 8-inch tires, you have to really wait for that car to catch some grip before you can get back into the throttle. So you scrub off a lot of speed. And then you've got Tim Nash on the high side. He just gets back into the throttle. He's carrying momentum from the high side, so he kind of has nowhere to go. But that's not Vanderieat's problem. He pulled a clean slider, so that's Tim's problem. He's got to figure out what to do. So you could either drive under him, you could bump him while applying some brake. There's all sorts of things that you could possibly do, but it looks like Tim Nash was just hard on the brake, spun himself out, and that's what happened. So in these modifieds, we run all rear brakes. So anytime you hit your brakes in a panic or in a hurry, it'll set your car sideways. So when Tim Nash hit the brake, it spun himself out. But that was a clean slider. There's zero contact. So it kind of looks like when the slider was pulled, it does look like Tim maybe possibly tried to go underneath him. And it looks like from my angle, it looks like there could have possibly been a right front to left rear contact, plus applying the brake could have caused him to spin. But I can't stress it enough. That was a very clean slider, nowhere close to touching. And I don't know what else to say. But for you to complain about that being a bad call, I'm sorry, bud. And I always say it like this. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug. You've got the dirty end of it, but that was on you, not Vanderieat. Okay, so now that you've seen that clip, what you did not see is the chaos that happened under caution. So from what I'm told, it didn't look like it if you're just watching it, but like Vanderieat said, if you watch as they're coming out of the turn, I think it was turn number 2, under caution, Vanderieat kind of ran Tim Nash up. They didn't make contact, but he kind of ran him up the track and got beside him and was displaying that he didn't like being hit from behind. So let's talk about that for a second. Getting hit from behind. Vanderieat kept saying, he kept hitting me from behind. 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't see multiple hits. And you know what? In my opinion, getting hit from behind is not a problem. Sometimes that's a tactic used when you're racing to bump somebody to kind of like set them off their game. If there's like, especially when there's just one groove and you're right behind them and you know you're faster than them, or if you're not faster than them, but maybe you can still keep up with them, you bump them. It upsets them. It gets them out of their groove. It sets them off pace and kind of what you're kind of doing is hoping that they make a mistake. They overdrive the car. Oh my God, there's somebody right on my ass. I got to do something. Let's overdrive the car. Let's drive in deeper to try to get away from them. And then you make a mistake, and it allows that second place car to get around. So I, for one, don't really see getting bumped in the ass multiple times an issue. Obviously, Vanderieat didn't like it, but I mean, that's just being petty to me. I think Vanderieat should have just dealt with it. But here's the thing. From my perspective, from what I seen, it kind of looks like, here you go. Let me explain this to you. So Vanderieat, for the most part, ran a line kind of coming off the bottom, mid-track, and then into the turn, kind of like that. Okay? Sometimes Vanderieat ran a line staying very low, diving in here and keeping his car low all the way around the track. As the race went on, it looks like Vanderieat's coming off low and coming all the way to the outside and then back in. Well, guess where Tim Nash is running? Tim Nash is running the high side. He's coming around, and if you wash up in front of him, the high side's always, for the most part, going to have that momentum, and you're going to get bumped in the ass. And on a couple of those laps, it looks like, from my perspective, again, I have to be neutral and call it like I see it. It looks like Vanderieat slid up into the high groove and got hit by Nash, and I don't see a problem with that either. That's just racing. Normally what you do is if you know if you're running that low side, you kind of run this line right here. You kind of run right here, like one groove off. You got to give this high side room to race, because if not, what could have happened, and if you time this just right, if you've got a car right here and you are sitting right here and you're going to come up to this high side, what could happen is he can get into your right rear and spin you, and you'll be flipping. So when you run, you've got to run kind of like what you see here. You've got to run side by side and give this outside line some room. And it kind of looked on that video, it kind of looked like he was coming all the way up to the wall. So that could have caused some of that bumping. So even though Vanderieat was using up all the track and he was getting bumped, it doesn't make Tim Nash wrong. But that's that. So here we are. They're pissed off at each other, or at least Vanderieat's pissed off at Tim. So he washes him up the track coming off of turn number 2. They get up beside each other. The caution's out. You can see the flagman waving the flag here. You can see the flashing lights here. Caution is out. Vanderieat runs him up, says, hey, I don't like it, in sign language, which I'm sure wasn't pretty, but I have no footage of that. Tim Nash, he's not having it. Like he said in his video, 8 tires are better than 4 in that video. Tim Nash said himself that he was tired of Vanderieat's bullshit. So what does he do? Under caution, he slams him. I believe it's here in turn number 1. He slams down onto his car. He gets right into him and it slams right into his right front. I don't know how it didn't take his right front out, because it was a pretty hard hit, but it almost spun them both. It did spin Tim. It did spin Vanderieat, I believe. So then they kind of had a slugfest with their cars, which I never agree on. Yes, tempers get heated. Yes, things happen. But you never want to use your car as a weapon, because you've got people sitting on all 4 corners in the infield, people in the middle. There's a lot of people that can get hurt from your bullshit that you pull. Not to mention the thousands of dollars that you could do out of your own pocket by tearing up race cars. It's just never a good deal to use your car as a weapon, although we all have, including myself. So anyways, it's just something you shouldn't do. But the real problem is here's this right here. This is a receiver. This has a cord that comes into our ears, and it's a one-way radio. We can't talk to them, thank God for them, but they can talk to us, meaning the tower, people in the tower. They'll say, hey, knock it off, or they'll say, hey, 2 to go, or hey, guys, thanks for coming out, let's have a clean race, whatever. This is their source of communication. The real problem, I think, is with that track that night. The minute Tim Nash come down on top of that car and took Vanderieat out, they should have been on the horn immediately with this radio saying, Tim Nash, cut it out. Vanderieat, if you retaliate, you both are done. We're going to send you packing. That's what should have happened. So I blame the track, not Tim Nash, not Vanderieat. They should have refereed and took care of this problem right then, right there. But what did they do? They let them beat and bang on each other under caution and then finally told them to knock it out. So now they get to restart. Well, you got to realize the first person that made contact was Tim Nash. Yes, Vanderieat ran him up the track, told him I didn't like what you did, but it was Tim Nash that drew first blood. So that's on Tim. So Vanderieat probably lost all respect for Tim at this point. And now they've got to finish the race. So here we are with just a few laps to go, and they are second and third. Gary Gross is in front, Tim Nash's brother-in-law. He's leading the race. And then Tim Nash and then Vanderieat is in third. They go off on a restart with just a few laps to go into turn one. Tim Nash is a little like a couple grooves or so above the turn one. Vanderieat is in the back. He dives it down into here. And as you saw his right front, Tim Nash was not expecting that. And Tim Nash was about to set his car and he was going to run low. But because Vanderieat come out of nowhere, Tim Nash accidentally, I don't think he did it on purpose, but he accidentally turns it off in there. Vanderieat, he's probably pissed off and he's still trying to make the move. So he's going to dive bomb it off in there, which there's nothing wrong with it if you can get your car to stick. You know, that's a valid move you make. And if you ever leave that open, you put yourself subject to that. So he drove it in a little deeper, got in there. Here's Tim Nash on the outside. He just turns it off in there. So I believe that Tim Nash turned in to Vanderieat. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter who's at fault really at this particular time because they've already had all this drama all night long. And now they're just in a couple of races of finishing. And now here they are fighting for the same real estate. So whenever you're on the inside and you go to set your car, you have to, again, get on your brakes, turn your car, and your car wants to pitch out. So if you're going into a turn, you hit the brakes, it pitches your car. But if there's a car next to you and he just happened to turn down as you're trying to pitch, guess what? It can't pitch. So you guys are pinned to each other. You've got this upward momentum. You've got Tim Nash turning down. So now they're locked into each other. And Tim is trying to steer his car, but he's got Vanderieat leaning on him. Vanderieat's trying to get his car pitched, but he can't because Tim Nash is there. So that car, Vanderieat's car, is going to go wherever it's pointed, which is right here. He's going to go straight because he cannot pitch the car to go low. He's stuck. They're making contact right here. He's screwed. He can't go nowhere either. So he's got to get all over the brakes and almost loses it, almost gets ran over, and he clears him, and he's able to continue on while Tim lost a lot of spots. To me, whether there was chaos or no chaos, I think it was just a racing incident. On 8 wheels are better than 4, you got a much better view of it. But guess what? Tim Nash deleted that video so that I couldn't gain access to that video coverage, which I wasn't going to use to begin with out of respect for Tim, but that's kind of a bitch move, especially when you're trying to defend yourself. And Tim Nash, had you kept that footage in and also kept all that footage in what happened under caution, whether it was your fault or not your fault, that probably would have been one of your highest watched videos to date just because of all the drama. But now here you are, you hide the video. So do you have something to hide? What are you trying to do here? I mean, you're trying to prove your innocence, but you delete the video. It makes no sense to me. But I have enough video footage to call it. Am I calling you wrong? No. Tim Nash, you were wrong for making contact and using your car as a weapon. That's on you. He was also wrong for retaliating, but what's he expected to do? So you both were wrong in that incident. This here was more of a racing deal than anything. I don't think he intentionally drove you dirty. I don't think you intentionally turned down on him. I think that you did not see him coming and you were about to set your car low because you changed from the high side to the low side. So I think you were changing it up and he just happened to be there. Like he said in his video, I'm a bottom feeder. So you left that bottom open. He shot his nose in there and chaos happens right here. So then it goes on to where he's in staging, not in staging, but in tech. He's lined up in tech and you come off the track, you get up next to him and you peel out and take off. Well, again, you showed your ass not only on the track, you showed your ass in the pits too. So now you're on the couch crying about how you were treated unfairly. So let's just rewind this and keep it real. The reason why, think about it. Why did Tim Nash get DQ'd and suspended for 2 weeks and Vanderieat just got DQ'd? Here's the thing. Tim Nash is a weekly guy. So he would probably get more clout from the track than a guy who shows up every so often. Vanderieat's not a regular there. So if anybody they would favor, I would assume that they would favor Tim Nash. But they didn't. They suspended him for 2 nights, which cost Tim Nash his championship. The track didn't cost Tim Nash the championship. Tim Nash, you cost yourself the championship by driving the way you did, by using your car as a weapon, and by spinning out or doing whatever you did when Vanderieat was in staging. So obviously, all the track support, the people in the tower saw something completely different than you and I. They saw what really happened. They are unedited. They're seeing it as it happens. And they DQ'd you because you chose to do things you shouldn't have done. You should never show your ass in the pits or even anywhere near. If you're going to keep it on the track. You should never go off track and do anything. The pits, you've got children running around. You've got people walking around everywhere. You could have hurt somebody or anybody, not just Tim, not just Vanderieat. You just don't show your ass in the pits or go speeding off or go pilling out because you're going to end up hurting a kid someday and you're going to have to live with that. Or run over somebody's wife or run over another driver waiting to go to the races, to race his class. A lot of bad things could happen. So the real lesson to learn here is learn to take things with a grain of salt. Learn to handle your shit. If you screw up, take the time out to go to somebody's pits with your hands like non-aggressive and say, man, I screwed up. I shouldn't have drove you like that. It was an accident. And here's the thing, everybody. We are racing at nearly 100 miles an hour sideways, and we all want that same real estate. So contact is going to be made sometimes, and we're going to make mistakes. We're making split-second decisions that can make or break us. If you do pull that slider, if you do want to make that move, if you want to take them on the high side, you're making all these moves at a split second. You're not thinking back there you're going to do this because that opportunity hasn't came up to you yet. So almost all of our decisions are on impulse, like spare the moment. So anything can happen. Sometimes you screw up and like, oh damn, I didn't clear him or whatever. But have the balls to go and apologize. First and foremost, that's what you got to learn to do. We all got to race. We all want to race. We all have fun. We spend a lot of money doing what we love, and you guys have got to practice proper race etiquette and apologize when you've been done wrong. And that's that. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I would love to hear your feedback on all of this, guys. I know you're not going to like this video. I know a lot of people aren't going to like this video, but it is what it is. This is what happened. This is the way I see it. And it doesn't make me right, but I'm based off of what I've seen. And I'd love to hear your feedback. We're going to be covering the Chili Bowl all week next week. We're going to be covering my racing career in doing double duty in the factory stock behind me and the modified sitting just off camera. So I'm doing double duty here in the Tulsa area, and I would love for you guys to subscribe and follow my journey to see how I do in both classes, and not to mention all the high name people in the Chili Bowl. We're going to do a lot of interviews with them, so make sure and like and subscribe, and leave a comment for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this clarifies things. Peace out.